was an ambush.
How many did you save?
Just like a dream.
You did the only thing you could do. And you lost.
Like a dream.
Look, we're still in this thing.
The day you walked away.
But we have no idea what we're dealing with.
Unfortunately.
Things are getting worse around here, aren't they?
Boyd, we're out of food.
Too many things are changing here. I have to remember.
Remember what?
What's missing?
Nothing that I've been through is possible.
I think you're here for what's in the basement.
This place will not break us. We can still win. But the only way we go home is together.
Hello. The game here is rigged. Why can't they leave us alone?
No matter what this place throws at us, we're gonna find our way home.
Everybody just talks about how afraid they are of dying. Well, I don't think that's the worst thing that can happen to you here.
Hello?
Like a dream.
You looking for these?
Into my life.
You can't save them all.
But things are really how they seem.
It was the boy in white. He was the one that was down here. He was the one who was telling secrets to Christopher. Someone who loved them. Told them a story. And when the children...
And welcome welcome all to another edition of the Fromily Hour. And here we go, folks. We are getting down to the nitty-gritty, the final 3 episodes of Season 3, and it looks like definitive answers are finally flowing. And we got quite a few of them in this episode that I was very pleased with and surprised by in equal measure. So this was a very good episode. I thought this was a big step up from both episode 6 and 7, just in my opinion personally. I really enjoyed this one. We had some really great scenes, some great revelations, some great acting from Scott McCord again as Victor. I'm all in, folks. I cannot wait to see these final 2 episodes and see what other big revelations they have in store for us. But here we are, Rob. We're getting some definitive answers now, man.
Fantastic episode, man. Like it kind of so quick too. Like, nothing happened for like 40 minutes in the episode, and then like bam, we're hit with all these like gut shots. It was crazy. Yeah, I loved it, dude. Loved it. Great episode.
Yeah, no, me too. And you're absolutely right. It did. We got to like the last like 15 minutes of the episode, and it was just like boom, boom, boom. We get that great scene of Victor down in the basement when he finally remembers his full memory that it wasn't the doll Jasper that was speaking at all, but really the boy in white, which I was very pleased with. I know I've said this in the past, but I was a little nervous that the show was going to go like full on Chucky, and I just felt like
good choice.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm really glad that we avoided that, just because the horror on From has been so sophisticated up until this point, and it's been very just well written, that a talking doll, a talking puppet would have just felt a little out of place compared to the phenomenal horror that we've been getting up until this point. So I was really glad that the way that they played that, where it really was no talking doll, no Chucky. This was the boy in white. And as this one also, as Respergu points out, Yeah, Victor's guilty. I mean, that was another big revelation. I imagine this is going to be something that Victor's going to be dealing with in episode 9, 10, and probably going into season 4 as well, where not only is he finally remembering that it wasn't actually Jasper that was telling the story, but the boy in white, but he also finds out that it was him who informed his own mother of this story, sending her on her trip, which eventually led to her death. So I imagine Victor's going to be dealing with a good amount of guilt, knowing that he ultimately sent his mother to her doom. So that's true. Victor's going to be dealing with some guilt. He's
Great
definitely gonna be
acting
dealing with some
though
guilt.
from Scott McCord though, man. Nailed the
Yeah.
scene. Not an easy scene, I'd imagine, to act either. Like you've got to fit a lot of information in that little speech he did, and deliver it with such I don't know, just perfection. I thought he did a great job.
He does. I mean, I'm always incredibly impressed with him, but every once in a while he'll have like a really, really good performance, and I would definitely count this episode in, among some of his best. Where, yeah, I mean, it's one thing to just deliver dialogue in a believable manner, but the way that he just fully embodies this character of Victor, and he really just comes across like a 10-year-old kid sometimes. Like the tantrums he was throwing in this episode were so freaking good, where we see him at the beginning where Sarah's trying to work the puppet and he's getting all upset like a 10-year-old kid throwing a
Yes, dude.
tantrum. He's
So
good,
good.
man.
Yeah, like to be able to manage to act that way as a full-grown man is
Yeah.
is beyond impressive. Like he's killing it, absolutely killing
He
it.
is. He's absolutely killing it. I mean, I think he's in terms of like, he's not my favorite character. Victor, I would probably put Victor in like my top 3 or top 5
Yeah,
favorite characters. But in terms of like my favorite actor on the show, I love Harold Perrineau. I mean, he absolutely brings it in every scene that he's in. But something about Scott McCord's performance as Victor, it's he's in a league of his own. I feel he's so
yeah.
good.
I feel like him, Harold, and Jade by far that they feel like they're the best actors on the show. They really feel like they're a step above everyone else.
Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, and that's not to take anything away from the rest of the cast. I
No,
feel like
not
the
at
entire
all.
cast is pretty strong. But yeah, I mean, they just absolutely bring it in every scene that they're in. And this was a good one. This was a really good performance from Scott McCord, and we got to see some interesting things, some interesting revelations. And even through Julie's storyline has been going on this season as well. We got some really interesting reveals from good old Julie, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. But first, we got to say what is up to the awesome chat here. Let me scroll up. Let's see who we got hanging out with us this evening. And of course, welcome one, welcome all. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic start to your week. As we dive into a little bit of Fromville here, be a little bit of a quicker stream than we usually do. I know I usually like to go for 3, sometimes 4 hours, but unfortunately I do have to get up really early tomorrow, so this one will be a little shorter than usual. But I will be making up for it with an extra Fromville Friday stream that I'm going to be doing this week as well. So we have plenty of talk to dive into throughout the week as we try to unravel some of these mysteries and see what the heck is going to be coming next. We got Sandra in the house. What is up, Sandra? For the love of freakish nightmare, let there be a season 4. And I imagine there will be. I'm highly confident that we are going to get a season 4, and even the actors of the show are very confident they are going to get a season 4 as well. MGM usually kind of plays the same format where they usually wait till the show completely finishes airing before they announce a new season. I imagine they probably just want to see the full numbers of their attendance from episode 1 to episode 9 and 10. So once the season is actually over and season 3 is complete, I imagine we'll probably get a pretty swift announcement that season 4 is a go, because this is becoming MGM's most popular show and it's bringing tons of new subscribers to their streaming service. So yeah, rest assured, guys, we are definitely going to get a season 4. This show is not going to get canceled.
That's one thing that like we always talk about, like what we want the show to be or how we want it to end. But that's one thing that if I can only have one thing is to let the writers write the show to the conclusion that they wanted in the amount of seasons that they wanted. So if that's all we can get, that I'd take that every day of the week.
Absolutely.
Let them do their thing.
Yeah, let them do it. Let them do their thing. Give them however many they need to tell this story properly, whether that's 4, 5, 6 seasons, whatever they need, whatever the writers need to actually tell this story in its entirety, no more, no less. Hopefully that's what they
Exactly.
get. Yeah, and I
Don't
get the
Game of
feeling they will.
Thrones this, please.
Yeah, or don't Walking Dead this, please. Like Walking Dead,
Yeah.
I used to love The Walking Dead in the beginning. Like the first 3 or 4 seasons of The Walking Dead, I thought were phenomenal. But that was a show that really just kind of stretched well past its expiration date and started to get a little bit stale, at least just for me personally. But yeah, I'm hoping they're going to get as many seasons as they need to tell the story, and I think they will. It seems like MGM is fully in on From. They're very invested in the show. It seems, and the show's doing great. The show has had better numbers in season 3 than any of its previous seasons, and a show like From doesn't cost a whole lot to produce a season compared to other big budget shows like a House of the Dragon or Rings of Power or some of the bigger budget Netflix and HBO shows. From's budget is incredibly modest compared to that. So that we have that going for us as well. It doesn't cost anywhere near as much to complete a season, and seeing the numbers continuing to grow, I think this show is on very solid footing. I don't think we have to worry about it getting canceled anytime soon. We got Susan in the house as well. What is up, Susan? We got Condor Kid. What is up, Condor Kid? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Got Justin in the house. Justin is in the house. Welcome, Justin. Always good to see more people in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Got Elizabeth in the building as well. What is up, Elizabeth? I see Joan in the house. I see my buddy Xavier Anderson is in the house as well. What is up, Xavier? Good to see you, my friend. Got Suff Lenny in the building. What is up, Suff Lenny? Welcome, welcome, welcome. See Amy is in the house as well. What is up, Amy? Welcome, welcome. I see M is in the building. Welcome, M. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Got Alvin Rogers in the house. What is up, Alvin Rogers? I see Mostly Insane. What is up, everybody? Big shout out to all the early arrivals who popped in early. You guys are absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome indeed. Alvin likes the song. I do. I love this song too. In terms of the intro that we play for the streams, and all of the credit for that goes to my other co-host Aldous. He found the song and thought it would just fit very well with the theme and the aesthetic of From, and
So
he was
good.
right. Yeah, it seemed to be a
It's so
pretty
good,
popular
yeah.
song.
It gets you right in the mood to talk about the show too. Like
It
you're
does.
ready to
It
go.
does. It gets you ready to go. Indeed, it gets you ready to go. Oh wow, Sandra, obsessed with the show. Binge watched all 3 seasons in 2 days. Damn. Now that is a binge marathon right there, and that's commitment. Awesome. That is awesome. I'm glad you found the show, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's awesome. It's always good to see more people finding the show, whether it's at the beginning of the season, midway through the season, or at the end. All are welcome here, and we love diving into it and discussing it with each and every one of you. So that's awesome. Wow, 2 days, man. That's almost what 28 hours of television in 2 days. That is commitment right there, Sandra. That is badass. Absolutely badass. Good stuff. Good stuff. We got Wild Marjoram in the house as well. What is up? We got Forever Autumn in the house. What is up, Forever Autumn? We got B Morgan in the building as well. What is up, B Morgan? I see Dizzy Guy Explorers is in the house as well. What is up, Dizzy Guy? Let me pop on down to the bottom here, see if I missed anybody. If I do miss anybody, I'm terribly sorry. I try to catch as many as possible, but there's been so many of you showing up lately. It's just so awesome. Absolutely awesome. But I do see Just Janus in the house. What is up, Just Janus? Good to see you. See Leah in the house as well. I see Michelle Miller. What is up, Michelle? I know there's a season 4. Just don't know how long we have to wait. That's the question, isn't it? And I get the feeling if they get a green light on season 4 right when season 3 ends, and they're lucky enough to kind of start filming, hopefully right around the January, February mark, we should still be able to get season 4 in 2025, probably towards the end of 2025, because a show like From usually takes anywhere from 5-6 months to film the actual principal photography. Then, of course, you have post-production and, usually maybe a few weeks of reshoots kind of shoved in there as well. Then marketing. So usually you're looking at around a 9-month period in total, 10-month period sometimes. So if they can get the green light pretty early and start filming again, maybe around January or February, we should still get From season 4 probably towards the end of 2025 if they follow.
They should just go back to back, man. Do 4 and 5, film them both.
That would be nice. That would be nice,
wouldn't it?
I certainly would not complain. I mean, that's what they did with the Lord of the Rings movies. I mean, they filmed all 3 of those movies back to back to back, and then just staggered the releases.
Crazy. Crazy.
And it worked well in terms of continuity because you have movies coming out 6 years apart from one another, and all the continuity just looks incredibly well because it was all filmed back to back to back. It's unfortunate that that Hollywood and the film industry doesn't follow that model too much these days, but seem to be tried and true. I know it's a lot of work, but definitely makes it better for us as the fans. Nothing else. If nothing else.
We got a
Jim got on my
super chat.
nerves. Oh, we do. Yes, we do have a super chat, and we have a new member as well. Let's get to both of these real quick. We got Michael DJ for $10. Thank you so much, Michael, for the 10. The kids were told a story that gave them hope. Do you think when they were chanting on Kui, they are calling on a savior character from the story? They reach out to Tabby and say on Kui.
Good question.
Interesting. Very good question indeed. And yeah, I mean, this is the one thing that I really love about From, but can also be like about From at the same time. Every time we get a definitive answer that tells us something pretty good, it's followed by just more questions. Now, yes, we did get that very interesting reveal from Victor when he finally remembered the true memory of the story that he thought was being told by this doll Jasper, which thankfully it wasn't. It was really the boy in white. Again, I'm really glad we dodged the full-on Chucky bullet. But yeah, now we're left with some even more questions. But one thing we do know is these children were apparently a part of some kind of grizzled sacrifice. And even worse, it seems like this was done to them by people who they cared about, people who were their loved ones, which very well could maybe even be their own parents, even, which seems to be one of the running theories up until now, that these poor children's parents sacrificed them in some grizzled manner to attain some kind of dark goal. What that goal is still remains to be seen, but one thing we do know, that there was at least somebody who loved the children, that told them some kind of story that gave them hope. They poured the hope into the roots, and from those roots was born the Faraway Trees. So we got a definitive origin for the Faraway Trees in episode 8, which was really cool. And yeah, I guess that's back to your question, Michael, was the them chanting on Kui, was this on Kui word, was this a figure in the story that they kind of held on to that gave them hope? I don't know, but I suppose that's as plausible as a theory as I've heard up until this point. I mean, again, there's still so much that we don't know. On Kui, we've researched the word tons of times. There doesn't seem to be any real world translation for on Kui in its present state in the way that it's spelled on the show. There's a lot of words that come very close to it, some abbreviated versions of the word, like the Anku one that we talked about last year in terms of the spirit. The Anku is basically a figure from Britain myth that collects the souls of the dead, kind of thing. But I don't think we're going there. I think Ankui is going to mean something totally different, but could it potentially be a figure from the story that was told to the children? I suppose it's possible. I do suppose it's possible.
I want to know, who do you think that told the kids the story, though?
Yes, indeed.
Oh,
indeed.
Who told them the story that gave them hope, man? That's crazy. Oh.
Yeah, someone that loved them told them the story that gave them hope, and that hope they poured into the roots. Now, if these children were sacrificed by people that were close to them, their loved ones, maybe there was one among them that wasn't quite on board and tried to thwart it, tried to save the children, or tried to give them the story to give them that hope. Because again, the way that Victor states it was, this was done to them by their loved ones that they trusted, which kind of points to potentially being their own parents, even maybe. Was there maybe one parent out of the group who maybe wasn't on board with this whole sacrifice that they were doing, and maybe fed the Ankui children this story to give them some kind of hope? I don't know, but again, with the answers comes new questions.
I wonder if that ties into the kimono lady, Jeremy.
I've wondered that as well. That was the kimono lady? Yeah, was the kimono lady potentially the one who told them this story, even, or was she one of the other parents? Even if she didn't tell them the story, could she potentially have been one of the parents that originally sacrificed these children? Is that why she's searching for a new child now through Fatima to replace the one she lost? But yeah, I mean, again, your theory, Michael, is potentially as plausible as anything else we've heard up until this point, because we really just don't know. We've got some interesting answers, yes, but again, definitely leads to even more questions. Born in the dark, murdered in the dark, and eclipse, says Bill D. That's very true. He also says that they were born in the dark and they were murdered in the dark. Now, part of me thought that maybe could have meant that they were born and killed in the dark, literally down in the dark in the caves. Because when we do see that one vision from Jade at the end of season 2, he's down in the caves and he's seeing all of these slabs of stone and the Ankui children being sacrificed, it looks like, or chanting the Ankui chant, pouring their hope into the roots. So when I saw that they were born and murdered in the dark, I kind of took that as they were born and murdered down in the caves. But could it be dark in terms of an eclipse, though? I suppose that could be plausible as well. I kind of thought it was the caves, referring to the caves, though, personally. But I suppose it could easily be some kind of eclipse as well. But yeah, I mean, was this Ankui character, was this Ankui word an actual person, some kind of savior in the story, as Michael suggests? Again, it's very plausible, very possible, I suppose. Hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about this in these final 2 episodes when we heading into season 4 to give us a little bit more to chew on. Because I was expecting to get some kind of answers, but I was really hoping that the big answers, or I still am hoping that we're going to get some big answers in these final 2 episodes, especially with 9 and 10 being titled Revelations Part 1 and 2. Seems like some other big reveal is hopefully on the horizon. So hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about these Ankui children, this story, who told them that, and who originally sacrificed these children in the first place. Was it their parents? Was it some other kind of guardians or something? Hopefully we'll find out. Another thing I enjoyed was the boy in white starts off his whole kind of story with the answer to the end is at the beginning, which again is giving us just more and more hints at this kind of history repeating, this kind of cycle, this kind of time loop cycle that seems to potentially be playing over and over and over again. And could that be why we're seeing all of this history repeat itself every once in a while, where we're seeing Christopher and everything that he went through with the symbol and all that, and now we're seeing Jade is going through the exact same thing. He's being played with the symbol now, very similar to Miranda and Tabitha's storylines mirroring each other, and all the other characters that have mirrored each other up until this point. We got some really good parallels between Jim and Henry in this episode as well, where Jim is pretty much where Henry was 40 years ago, where Henry was in the exact same shoes as Jim was in terms of having a wife that he thought was losing it. And Henry's looking at Jim and he's thinking, man, I would give anything to go back and, approach this whole situation from a different light. He was approaching it as Miranda was broken, something that needed to be fixed. But what if he would have been a little bit more open-minded? What if he would have believed her? Could there have been a different outcome? And now Jim seems to be making these same mistakes that Henry made all those years prior. And I love the little candid conversation that Henry has with Jim in the bar, where he basically just tells him, why don't you just shut the fuck up and listen to your wife every once in a while, Jim? Because Henry's been there. Henry's been in those exact same shoes, and he saw the price that he and his family paid for him not believing his wife. So yeah, a lot of history repeating and a lot of signs of some kind of cycle or time loop happening over and over and over again. The answer to the end is at the beginning. But thank you so much, Michael, for the $10. We also got a new member from Gina Lloyd, Nix Tix Memes. Thank you so much, Gina, for becoming a member of the channel. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Of course, all members have access to the custom Fromville emojis. And do not be shy. Feel free to spam the heck out of them and show your support. Thank you so much, Gina, for becoming a member. Very much appreciate you. And we also got a super sticker from Sandra as well. Thank you so much, Sandra, for the super sticker. It looks like that's is that a Super Nintendo controller with legs and arms? I approve. I absolutely approve. I mean, little known fact, I actually still every once in a while plug in my Super Nintendo and play it. Super Nintendo is still to this day one of my favorite consoles of all time. I love throwing in some of the old, whether it's the old Paperboy, old school Mortal Kombat, Zombies Ate My Neighbors. I love Super Nintendo, and that's a system I'll never get rid of. You play a lot of Super Nintendo in your day, Rob?
Oh yeah, man, Super Mario and all that stuff. So
Hell
good.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Mario All-Stars for Super Nintendo. I never get tired of it. Never tire of it. But thank you guys so much for the super chat, for the gifted memberships, and for the super stickers. I owe you guys a whoa. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff indeed. Yeah, it's pretty cool about Nintendo. I love it. I just love Nintendo. Even 64. I even still have my Nintendo 64 console, and I'll even throw that in every once in a while and play some old school Zelda or some old school 007. GoldenEye for Nintendo 64. That was the game.
An absolute banger, man, back in the day.
Right? Right, that was the game when I was growing up.
How good was the theme track? It was so good.
Oh, it was so good. Such an awesome score, an awesome theme song. I'll never get old. I'll never get tired of the old school kind of 007 games, especially the GoldenEye game, where you get to, it was like kind of the earliest iteration of Call of Duty, where it had that multiplayer version where you could all kind of fight against each other, which kind of became later on Call of Duty, even, a similar format to Call of Duty. And if you were lucky enough to get that golden gun, you knew that you were gonna fucking just slay everybody, because you knew it took one shot to take everybody out with the famous golden gun. So yeah, I love my Super Nintendo and my Nintendo 64. I love those consoles, and I very much still play them often. All right, let's see what else we got here. Now, on top of this, we also finally got an answer to a long-awaited fan question, something that we have all been asking ourselves since very early on in Season 2, just who exactly threw that damn rope down to Boyd?
Great scene.
Yeah, man. And this, honestly, when this happened, when it kind of became a meme at one point, where it wasn't so much a mystery that like fans wanted solved. It really kind of became a meme up until one point, where it was, who threw the rope down to Boyd meme. And I, for one, I was getting to the point where I was maybe thinking that we would never find out, that was just a scene that they would never return back to. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they kind of threw that in there just to kind of satisfy the fan base and give us that kind of definitive answer. Because I thought maybe we'll never find out how Martin threw this freaking rope down to Boyd. Maybe that's something they'll just never tell us. But I'm glad they kind of returned back to it, and we got that definitive answer that Julie, of all people, Julie threw the rope down to Boyd. Now, when you were thinking about this whole thing, if you have thought about it, would Julie ever have been in your Rolodex of candidates that might have thrown this rope down?
No, I don't think so. But I'm glad she is, though. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, I don't like time travel stories, but I really like the way they're doing it in this. It kind of makes it things that everything's connected, and things have already happened, and things are going to happen that have happened before. I really enjoy it. It was really good to see. I'm questioning, though. I've heard this going around, that some people that think that is Randall on the wall, Jeremy.
Yes.
What do you think?
I guess I even put it in my video that it could potentially be Randall. I mean, if we find out that Randall was a military vet at some point and has a Marine tattoo, then I'm going to get real concerned.
Yeah.
But it does, at least make you raise the question, not the whole Randall thing, but who Martin is, in general. Is Martin potentially a character that we have maybe already met that is stuck in this kind of time loop? Because it seems like you, much like you, I'm not a big fan of time travel in stories. I feel like it can really ruin stories at times. But this, I wouldn't really consider even time travel. It's more of a time displacement kind of thing that only seems to happen in the circumference of these little ruins. Because we see as soon as Julie gets pulled out of the ruins, she's right back in her regular timeline. So I don't think this little ruins can be used as a mechanism to visit other time periods. I don't think they'll go full on time travel in that regard, but it does seem like we're getting some kind of time displacement that takes place within the circumference of these ruins, almost like these ruins exist beyond the time continuum, almost like all timelines are converging in this place.
Yeah, time travel is the worst when they have a whole movie or a plot where things go wrong at the end, and then they use time travel to go back and change it all. I just hate that. It's the worst possible thing that they can do. But the way they've done it here is really nice.
I really enjoyed the way that they were doing it. The way that it was kind of self-contained just to inside these ruins where Julie is visiting these kind of multiple different time periods, where of course, we finally get the answer as to who dropped the rope. Julie of all people, I kind of was always betting on the boy in white, that the boy in white maybe popped up into those ruins and threw the rope down to Boyd just at the right time. The boy in white was always my main suspect for who dropped the rope, but I certainly never would have guessed Julie of all people. So that was a big surprise, but a good one. It's nice to get some definitive answers.
If it is Randall, like he's said multiple times, there is fates worse than what the death or the monsters here. I mean, if
fate's worse than death, yeah,
yeah. I mean, and if it is him, I mean, he's predicted that perfectly. If this is actually him against the wall, so that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it could be something similar to this as well, where I don't think any of these people are these people are actually other people, but more like different players in the same game, creating different timelines. And again, it definitely seems like there are this multiple kind of timeline thing happening over and over again, where maybe this little mechanism can be used to change certain things, just not many things. But in terms of this whole, they definitely seem to be hitting us over the head with this kind of history repeating and this potential time loop happening over and over again. And I think we're finally getting some more evidence, if not definitive proof, at least some more evidence as to how it could potentially be broken. Where we hear the boy in white say to Christopher that he needs to go through the tree to save the children. And you brought this up in the past, Rob, and I think you were spot on in terms of it's not going to be as simple as them just finding the way out. That it's not going to be that easy where they find an exit to Fromville, they all leave, and they live happily ever after. It's not going to be that simple. If they leave without completing what they were meant to complete here, they'll probably just get pulled right back in. So I do tend to think, like you brought up a few weeks ago, that probably is the ultimate goal. Because we hear it very early on in season 1. Even Ethan kind of lays out a line of dialogue that I think is going to be a direct allegory for the entire show, a blueprint, if you will, when Ethan talks about this being a quest and how we have to complete the quest in order to go home. And the closer we get to the end of the quest, that's when it gets the scariest. And I think that's going to be a direct blueprint for how the show is going to go. I do think they have some sort of objective they need to complete. It's not going to be just as simple as finding the way out and all riding off into the sunset. There's something they need to do here, something they need to defeat, some kind of objective. And like you mentioned, I do think it is saving the Onkui children. Finally, successfully saving these Onkui children is most likely how they quote unquote complete the quest. And then they can probably leave safely and they won't have to worry about being pulled back in. Because it seems like it's all revolving around these Onkui children and all going back to the Onkui children, where we even see the boy in white say, the answer to the end is at the beginning, and how it all started with the children. Now, does that potentially mean that this sacrifice or whatever happened to these children, is that what originally created Fromville itself? Could Fromville actually be the byproduct of some dark experiment or sacrifice gone wrong? And then if that is the case, I guess we still have to ask ourselves, how do the monsters fit into all this? Because that's one thing we still haven't gotten any real definitive answers on. How the monsters were created, what role the monsters play in all of this, and how they ultimately came to be. But part of me wouldn't be too surprised if some of these monsters, maybe not all of them, but if some of these monsters were maybe some of these original parents who sacrificed their own children to attain some kind of dark goal. Maybe they were searching for immortality or some other means, and maybe they got the immortality they were searching for, only ended up coming with a much higher price than they originally intended, turning them into these monsters and maybe cursing their entire town at that, in the same breath. But in terms of the Onkui children potentially starting this whole thing, still doesn't quite answer where the monsters came from. So I'm hoping we'll get some kind of definitive answer for that. Maybe not this season, but hopefully at some point on the show. Because that was my big question. All right, where the hell are the monsters coming from now? If the Onkui children, if this sacrifice kind of happened to the Onkui children and it created this whole time loop to begin with, again, we still need to find out what the heck happened with these monsters and where the heck did they come from, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be the Onkui children though, because you think if they were the parents, they'd all be from the same sort of timeline. And we've got 70s cheerleader, 30s nurse,
Well, they seem like to be
cowboy.
around like the 50s, 60s era for most of the clothing that I've seen anyway. It seems to all kind of go right back to that 50s, 60s time period. I think they're all 50s, 60s era based. But I don't know. Again, big question still a huge question as to where these monsters came from. I've heard the term time walker, time traveler brought up several times. Yeah, I saw a few people talking about time walker. Like I think Delsenia brought it up in the chat as well earlier about Julie potentially being a quote unquote time walker, where maybe she is able to travel to these other time periods where other people can't. That's a potential possibility as well. I could easily see that being the case. I mean, we're seeing Julie clearly visited multiple different time periods when she was down in the in the ruins. And one thing I thought was interesting is she got to one part in her little vision, in her little time traveling gallop. She gets to this one point where she can hear the Onkui children. She can hear them chanting Onkui. And she goes a little bit forward, and she gets to this point where she can see right above, maybe 10, 20 feet in front of her, there is an opening to the cave. Now, judging by the light here, this doesn't look like this is outside, like this is an exit to the cave. It almost looks like there's some kind of lantern or torch lit inside this room here. And I wouldn't be surprised if Julie would have been able to stay inside her vision for 10, 20 more seconds. I wouldn't be surprised if she would have taken this corner and actually seen what was happening to the Onkui children. I wouldn't be surprised if Julie is going to have to return to these ruins at some point again and get some more definitive answers as she kind of goes further and further into the caves or into whatever vision she's going to get shown. Because part of me was thinking, holy shit, we're going to see what happened to these Onkui children. She's going to walk around this corner. We're going to see exactly what's happening to these children. And boom, Ethan, Kenny, and Acosta pull up and drag her out of the circumference just at the worst time where we don't actually get to see what is around the bend here. But we did hear the Onkui children, or the noise of the Onkui children, coming from this opening down there. So I wouldn't be surprised if she was about to see it.
There's no way they were going to give us that though. Like
No,
it would have been
early.
too soon. Not this, not this
Yeah.
early.
Too much.
But, I mean, tell me you wouldn't throw Julie
just
straight back in the ruins though, and like, go back in there, find out. Come on,
into the ruins, right? Yeah,
yeah.
And she seemed, she seemed sufficiently scared, so I could totally understand her not going right back. But at this point, I would be very surprised if she doesn't return to this at some point and eventually does see what's on the other side of this opening down there. What's really going on with these children? Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. But no, I like the whole time walker theory. I think that's an interesting one. I think that maybe Julie does have this special ability where she can, under the right circumstances, see these other kind of time periods, and maybe she will become very vital and later on down the road at finding some more definitive answers. Maybe she can travel to some other events in Fromville and give us even more answers to some other things. So I'm liking what they're doing with Julie's character this season. I feel like they haven't done a whole lot with her character in the first 2 seasons. But here in season 3, they're really giving some of these characters really good storylines, like Julie and Elgin as well. Like, I wasn't a big fan of Elgin's storyline in season 2 because I felt it was a little anticlimactic. We finally get all the way to the end of season 2. He finally remembers his dream, only to recite the same old nursery rhyme that we had already heard 10 times up until that point. So it wasn't really anything new or definitive. But this season, they're giving Elgin a proper storyline. And I guess we can talk a little bit about that. What was your, everybody in the chat too, I'd love to know what you guys think. Is it just me, or did Elgin just do the mother of all heel turns incredibly fast? Like, he went from light to dark at the drop of a freaking hat, where one moment he's this happy-go-lucky Elgin character, to the next minute kidnapping Fatima and throwing her down into the freaking spare room down in the root cellar. And the whole time it's like, it seems like he believes that he's doing what is best for her. I don't know what this Onkui, I don't know what this kimono creature said to him, but whatever this kimono creature filled into Elgin's head, whatever kind of manipulation tactic she was using on Elgin, boy, did it work like a charm, because he did a crazy heel turn incredibly fast.
Yeah, I think once you saw the picture of the bag of blood and then he started taking his own blood, it was kind of like a symbol of, well, this is going to go badly, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was quick, but I kind of liked it, honestly, because it really just kicked the story along like 5 notches in one scene. So it was great. I enjoyed it.
It did, and it's interesting to see some of the townsfolk go a little bit dark. I mean, yes, you always have to worry about the threat of the monsters and the entities and all of the horrors that come out at night from the forest, but it adds an interesting layer to the story when humans have to start worrying about other humans. It's more unpredictable. It's almost scarier at that point when you have to start worrying about human sabotage on top of worrying about the monsters. So I liked it. I mean, it was a good heel turn, I thought. I agree. Absolutely agree. But no, I could tell that this is where it was going, just based off the score. Now, anybody, if you guys go back and rewatch the episode again, pay very close attention to Elgin's scenes. Every time Elgin has a scene in episode 8, if you listen to the music in the background, the score for his scenes, it's incredibly dark, incredibly ominous. The whole theme of the music in his scenes was incredibly dark. That's what led me to believe that something bad was going to happen. Elgin was going to kind of turn a little bit dark. I kind of had a feeling it was coming just based off that music. And like you said, Rob, as soon as we see him kind of taking his own blood, lying to Randall about why he was in the medical clinic, you don't have no cut on your foot. I mean, anybody could have seen that lie coming from a mile away. As soon as he said, "Oh, I got a cut on my foot," bullshit. You don't got a cut on your foot. You're lying, Elgin. You're sus as hell. So I knew he was up to something. I just didn't know what exactly the outcome was going to be. But no, I liked it. It was a really good heel turn. We're definitely seeing Elgin again. He's fully immersed with this kimono creature. Whatever she said to him in these scenes that we as the audience aren't privy to was very effective, because it seems like she has him kind of wrapped around her finger there, even to the point where he's willing to kidnap Fatima and telling her that it's for the best. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes and what exactly Fatima is going to give birth to, I guess, at the end of the day. Because if we look at the episode 9 trailer, you can see a quick little glimpse of Fatima in this hidden spare room, and her stomach is already getting bigger. You can already see that she is showing in the trailer for episode 9. So whatever's growing inside Fatima, it's growing fast, and this pregnancy is very much real. Because that was another thing, some fans were wondering that maybe this whole ultrasound scene that we saw earlier was one big misdirect. Yes, the ultrasound revealed that there was nothing inside of her, but maybe that's because what was inside of her wasn't exactly natural or normal. Maybe it was a little bit more of the supernatural Fromville variety. That's why the ultrasound couldn't pick it up. And it seems like that very much was the case. But as soon as we hear Elgin say, "No, you are pregnant. There is a baby. It's just not yours." It was just so menacing. The way he delivered the lines, so menacing, right?
Yeah.
So good. So good. Even the creepy smile on his face.
Gina Lloyd says Elgin flipped just like Sarah did. And that is like that's a concern, how easily or quickly these people flip from one state to the next. Whatever these entities are telling them or convincing them to do these things is pretty impressive, how they're making them just turn so quickly.
Yeah, it was effective. Whatever this kimono creature said to him, it was very effective. And yes, as Tisha also brings up, it was almost like the kimono lady was scanning the town, and once she found Fatima, the picture with her location was shown to Elgin. Absolutely, I 100% agree. Because we see the kimono creature actually show up in the cabin, and Fatima even sees her. Fatima gets incredibly scared when she sees this kimono creature show up, and then 2 seconds later we see the picture coming out of the Polaroid. So yes, I agree with you 100%. It seems like the kimono creature was scanning the town, trying to figure out where Fatima was so she could then tell Elgin the location. Man, very menacing. Very, very menacing on Elgin's part. And even he says, "See, even the baby knows you need to be here." But I guess the question is, what exactly is Fatima going to be giving birth to? Is this going to be a normal human child, or is this going to be something of the more monster variety? And I mean, based off her eating rotten food, and not only eating rotten food, craving human freaking blood. And like you mentioned earlier, we saw Elgin filling up a few vials of his own blood, which is most likely going to be meant for Fatima to nourish her and the baby even further. I get the feeling this is not going to be a normal baby that she is going to give birth to. I'm guessing this is going to be a little bit more of the monster variety, but whatever she gives birth to, I cannot wait to freaking see it. I cannot wait to see it. But do you think it'll be a normal looking human, or do you think it'll be something on the monster side?
God, I don't know. I see. My kind of theory is that the kimono lady gave birth to one of the Ankui kids, but had it taken from her. So I don't know. Maybe it's in between.
Maybe. I mean, if it wasn't for the rotten food and the blood, I would maybe think that this kimono creature just wants to be reunited with her own regular child. But seeing as this rotten food, and I get the feeling that the kimono creature set this whole thing into motion. Obviously, the kimono creature was the one who made Fatima pregnant, this kind of immaculate conception, as it were. But on top of that, I wouldn't be too surprised if the kimono creature was the very cause of the food getting rotten at Colony House in the first place, specifically to nourish the child. Because I always had a feeling that that rotten food was put there specifically for Fatima. And I think now we know the kimono creature was most likely behind all of that. But yeah, based on the blood and the rotten food, I think she's going to be giving birth to something of a little more supernatural variety, something that's not going to be fully human. Not going to be fully human, I don't think. But I guess we'll see. And could it even be twins, as Debbie says? Could there potentially be more than one baby? I suppose that's possible as well. I mean, some people were raising the possibility of her potentially being pregnant with twins. And I believe some people were even wondering if there's triplets in there too. I don't know. I mean, could it be twins? I suppose it could be. Question is, why a child? Exactly, why a child? And like you said, Rob, earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if this kimono creature, like you said, maybe her baby was violently ripped from her. Maybe she lost her baby in some kind of violent manner, and maybe now she wants it replaced. Because you found something pretty interesting that could fit almost to a T what this kimono creature could be.
Yeah. Okay. So this is for everyone in chat. It's called a Ubemi. So Ubume. It's a Japanese pregnant lady. She's most commonly depicted as a spirit of a woman that has died during childbirth. She would typically try to give passerby her child, then disappear, only for the person she's given the child to be holding either a bunch of leaves or a large rock. And if you look at it further, it also says that the rock grows to the point where it can't be carried. And it reminds me of that scene where Jade finds that guy in the basement or whatever it is, in the root cellar, crushed by a rock. And I'm like, that seems to tie in really, really well. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to read that thing more thoroughly. I only kind of, scanned it, but the little bit that I saw, yes, I mean, this Umbumbe creature thing, it does very much fit what this kimono creature has been displaying. That all the features that this kimono creature has been displaying are very similar to that creature. And again, I wouldn't be too surprised if they did maybe take some inspiration from that, because it seems like they do take real world inspiration from all of these different lores and mythologies all over the world. From seems to be like a nice big melting pot of all of these different mythologies that I imagine they took some inspiration from, whether it's Norse mythology, Native American, or Japanese mythology. We're seeing it kind of sprinkled all throughout the show. So I wouldn't be too surprised if they did take some inspiration from that creature.
Yeah,
because it's very similar, super similar, that's for sure. But let's hear from you guys in the chat. What are some of your thoughts and theories after seeing some of these scenes, some of these revelations in episode 8? Where do you guys see these last 2 episodes going and the rest of the show going? What do you guys think is on the horizon? Kimono Lady looked skeletal in season 2. Notice how the sticker Fatima gets, the healthier the lady appears. And I have noticed some other people bringing this up as well. Whereas, yes, when we look at the Like, we look at the kimono creature here. She looks closer to human here than she has in any of her previous iterations. So yes, I wouldn't be surprised if that could potentially be the case, where the weaker Fatima is becoming, the stronger this kimono creature is potentially becoming. Because if we look at her appearance here in season 3, and then we go back and look at her appearance when we first saw her in season 2, they look like two completely, totally different characters and creatures.
Did you also
Very
notice
skeletal.
that? Did you also notice in the latest picture she's got like red all around her kimono, but in the previous one she doesn't?
Yeah, the red almost seems to be a little more prominent as well. I mean, the red door that's down there in the root cellar. A lot of people were thinking that, does this have any kind of tie to the red symbol in the cave wall, the one symbol that we've learned really nothing about, the one that's next to the root symbol. Yeah, they're really playing up the red in season 3 for sure. For sure. The baby might look human, but I think Fatima will have an immediate aversion and disgust towards it when it's born. That's a possibility as well, where maybe Fatima is believing that this thing is a monster, and to everybody else around her, it just looks like a normal baby, kind of making her look even crazier, because she is kind of starting to, I mean, that was one of the big themes of the episode. These last few episodes is they're wondering, is there something more inside Fatima? Or has this place just finally gotten to her and made her snap? Is this all psychological? So that could play into that even more thickly, as you said. If the baby is born and it does look like a normal human, that could play into Fatima's kind of condition that much more, where it makes her look even crazier, where she's dead convinced that this is some kind of monster baby, where everybody else just sees a normal child. So I could see that potentially being the case. I could see that happening. Let's see what else we got. Victor's dad is lying about his wife having the visions of saving the children. I don't think he was lying. Personally, I think Miranda was having all of these visions. I'm just not 100% sure if Miranda was the one who was meant to actually save the children. It seems like the boy in white was tasking Christopher with that, not so much Miranda. It seems like Miranda going after these children was more due to Victor's story, the story that Victor told her. But it seems like the boy in white was trying to get Christopher to go through the tree and rescue the children. So maybe Miranda was never meant to go through that tree. Maybe Tabitha was never meant to save the Ankui children. Maybe Jade is actually really meant to save these children. Because when we look at Christopher's storyline and Jade's, they mirror each other almost exactly. And even a lot of the stuff that Jade is seeing is some of the same stuff Miranda saw as well. So I wouldn't be too surprised if at some point Jade, the boy in white, appears to Jade and tells him that he needs to go through the tree, because it seems like Jade and Christopher are very much paralleling each other's storylines.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be going through that tree unless the boy in white told me to, because I don't think that's how it's meant to work.
It seems like that might be the case, because like you mentioned, and this is something that we've noticed up until this point, every time one of the faraway trees is used successfully, the boy in white seems to have some sort of hand in either directing the people to it or straight up telling them to go into the tree. The one time we don't see the boy in white present at a faraway tree usage is Dale, and we all saw what happened to Dale. Poor Dale goes through the tree, and he was never quite the same again. But yeah, maybe the boy in white is paramount in terms of making these faraway tree destinations work right. Maybe he has some sort of control or influence as to where people go when they enter these trees. A lot of questions. Again, we got some interesting answers, but definitely led to some more questions. Time loops are hard to get your head around, like the movies, the Endless and Resolution, and it is tough. I mean, when you're doing some kind of time loop or history repeating or this whole cycle theory that seems to be becoming more and more prevalent, you got to be careful in the way you do it, because you can confuse audiences very fast if you don't lay these things out clearly enough. So I am looking forward to seeing how they go from here. Like, what are they going to do going forward? Are we going to see some more definitive evidence that there is some kind of cycle and time loop happening over and over and over again. And the boy in white is bringing people in here to Fromville over all of these different generations, hoping that one of them will successfully save these Ankui children where all of them have previously failed. So yeah, if you're doing this whole time loop thing, you got to be real careful in how you lay it out. You need to make sure it is pretty clear and concise and it doesn't get too convoluted. Because that's one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of time travel stories. They end up becoming so convoluted and they often contradict themselves. So whenever you're dealing with some kind of time travel, you got to make sure you have a really solid plan from the writing phase in terms of where you're going with it. What about you, Rob? Would you ever want to write a time travel story? You're a writer.
No, not at all. As a general statement, I hate them, and I think it needs to have like near perfect writing to make it work. But I think it's something that Hollywood has done to death. I also hate alternate dimensions as well, like, you know, typical comic book thing, like 4,000 Earths, and like no thanks. Don't like any of that stuff.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of them. I'm not the biggest fan of time travel stories. Again, there are some good time travel stories that I have really enjoyed, like Dark on Netflix. That is one of the best examples that I can point to in terms of how to do time travel right and make it compelling and make it make sense. Yes, you have to really pay attention when you're watching that show, but if you do pay attention closely, the way that they lay out time travel in the show Dark was phenomenal. It's one of the best time travel stories I've ever seen. But as you mentioned, a lot of them kind of fall flat at the writing phase and just in the concept phase. Yeah, she does look a little bit more fleshed out for sure. You know, a little bit of gray in her hair now. Like she's taking on a little bit of a different appearance. And like you said, like Gina said in the chat earlier, I think that could very well be the case where, like you said, the weaker that Fatima becomes, maybe the more filled out and the stronger this kimono creature will become. So I could very well see that being the case. Let's see what else we got.
God, it's so good, this show, man. Like, I can't wait to see where it goes.
I can't wait, man. It sucks we only have 2 episodes left, but I really can't wait to see these final 2 episodes and see like where the season ends. How much more are they going to give us? What are they going to set up for season 4? As much as I don't want it to end, I'm looking forward to seeing how it ends. So it should be interesting. And like you said, the show's just firing on all cylinders. I've really enjoyed season 3 so far. I mean, there's been a few slower episodes that were, that didn't really drive the plot forward too much. But even in those episodes, you still get some really good character development, some really good world building, some just phenomenal performances from some of these actors and actresses. So I can honestly say I don't think there's a single episode that I just outright disliked in season 3. I've pretty much liked them all. Yes, I like some more than others. But I can't say there's one episode that I just outright hated. Where usually there's always at least one episode that I kind of really don't like in every show that I watch. But I've been pretty impressed with season 3 so far. Pretty
Football says, can we talk about how her body was still in the main timeline? I would consider an astral projection. What do you think about that?
Whose body?
Julie. So like her body was on the floor of the ruins, but she was also in the ruins at the same time.
Yes, and I think that's I 100% agree. It did seem like it was a little bit more of an astral projection kind of thing, very similar to the first time that Julie was actually in those dungeons. Because if we remember back to season 2, when Julie, Randall, and Mari were all being held captive in those dungeons, it seemed like it was only their kind of spirit form, their dream form, that was held in there, while it seems like their physical bodies were back in town. So I think this was something similar, very similar to how that happened in season 2, where her physical body was laying down in the ruins, just laying on the ground, yet her astral form was traveling through to these different time periods. So yes, I 100% agree. It seems like they're setting that same thing up that we saw in season 2, where their physical body can be somewhere else, where their consciousness can be somewhere else from their consciousness. And I think that's what we saw.
But can you interact with the rope if you're astral projecting?
It seems like you can. I mean,
Okay.
I guess so. It looks like she had no problem picking it up, and I guess that would make a little bit of sense because we have seen some other evidence that things can be pulled right out of people's dreams and nightmares. Like things can actually be physically manifested in the real world that happen in dreams, and we see this happen to Kenny in season 2, where he gets burnt by the cicada in his dream, wakes up with the burn still on his arm. So it
Yeah.
does seem like what happens in dreams and what happens in this kind of astral form can carry over into the physical realm, I think. But yeah, these are again, and at least we got the answer as to who dropped that friggin' rope, which has been plaguing us for quite a while now. Quite a while we've
So
been wondering who dropped this damn rope.
where are you? What's your thoughts on the boy in white now? Then after that scene with Victor and him explaining to Christopher what he needed to do, is he good? Is he bad? What's his intentions?
Man, I've kind of been going back and forth on the boy in white. Just kind of trying to weigh all the evidence, trying to just take what the show is actually giving us. And I go back and forth on it, where at times I think the boy in white is genuinely trying to help, and at other times I think he might be a little bit more nefarious. But after this, I'm kind of back to thinking that maybe he is actually trying to help. I mean, it does seem like he has his own plan, his own agenda, but it seems like that end goal, the end game, is to ultimately save these Onkui children. So I am starting to think that, yeah, maybe his methods are a little bit mysterious and a little bit kind of sus at times, but maybe he is actually trying to help and actually save these Onkui children, which will in turn get everybody home. But what about you? Where do you stand on the boy in white? And let us know what you guys think in the chat as well. Do you think the boy in white is actually trying to help, or do you think the boy in white has his own plan that we haven't seen yet? What about you, Rob? Where do you stand with that?
I think you'd have to assume he's trying to help because Christopher didn't do what he said, what he wanted him to do, right? So if he had done that, then maybe this wouldn't be happening. Maybe it would be over. But because he hasn't done it, I'm assuming maybe he's actually trying to help them. I'm not sure about Kimono Lady though. I don't know what her deal is.
Yeah, I'm a little more sus on Kimono Creature. I mean, just seeing everything that she's doing with Fatima, I can't imagine she's doing any of this for a good altruistic purpose. But the boy in white, yeah, I mean, I could, if it turns out that the boy in white was trying to help the whole time, I don't think I would be too surprised now, especially after seeing this story, seeing some of the origins and like you said, how Christopher was very against it. And that was one thing Christopher says is, he didn't believe the boy in white. He says, you're lying. He says, everything lies here. And I do think there is an aspect to that. It seems like just about everything here in Fromville does lie. And even Randall says that same line. Nothing here wants to help us when Julie approaches Randall with the idea of going back to the ruins. Randall wants no part of it. He doesn't want to go back to those ruins at all. And he tells Julie, nothing here wants to help you. Stay away from that place. But yeah, who knows? Maybe the boy in white is the one entity in this place that actually is trying to help. That could be possible. Very well could be possible.
It is weird. It is weird though that the Kimono Lady seemed to be locked in that room though. Did they lock her in there and then take her baby? Is that why she was locked behind that door, behind the chest?
I wouldn't be too surprised if she was a victim herself. Like if this Kimono Creature was human at some point and she was just a pregnant mother, and that had her baby savagely ripped from her, I could totally potentially see something nasty happening to her that maybe turned her into this. Maybe she is this kind of vengeful kind of spirit who has been on this quest to be reunited with her child, and she doesn't mind using any means at her disposal to reunite with said child. But I wouldn't be surprised where at the beginning she was an innocent mother, maybe to start off. But I think she's a little more nefarious now, like almost like this whole experience has kind of twisted her into the side of evil a little bit more.
Yeah.
CeeLo says, yeah, wild. We finally know who threw the rope. I know, right? I mean, here we are 3 seasons in. We finally get the definitive answer as to who threw the friggin' rope. And we got Jen Hack, who gifted a membership. Thank you so much, Jen. Very much appreciate you. Thank you for the gifted membership. And it also looks like we got a super chat from Jen Hack as well. Thank you so much, Jen. Sarah had experience with sensory investigation. Maybe she was a subject or a victim in a crime. What was the weather like, Victor? Basic FBI questions. That's a good point. Because, yeah, it seems like when Victor's kind of having one of his episodes, it's really hard to kind of talk him down. But the only two characters that I've ever seen that have successfully managed to talk Victor down when he's in that state are Tabitha and Sarah. They're literally the only two that have managed to really kind of get through to him and that calms him down in states like that. So yeah, was that kind of Sarah's just instincts, kind of just knowing that she needed to kind of handle Victor in that manner? Or as you mentioned, does she have some kind of prior experience with stuff like that? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she does. But she seems like she knows how to handle Victor, just like Tabitha. They seem to be like the only two that really know how to get through to him.
Colonel Morg says, we'll touch on this last week. If people's real bodies aren't ever in the dungeon physically, where do you think Martin's now dead body is?
Very good question. And that's why a lot of people were wondering if Martin's dead body was the body that Elgin finds in the root cellar. Especially when you see especially when you see the long beard and the long hair. I wouldn't be too surprised if that was Martin's physical body that Elgin did find in that root cellar. If not, yeah, where exactly is his physical body? Because it seems like after Martin gives Boyd the worms, he kind of just drops dead and completely disappears. Because when Boyd kind of goes back into that place later on, Martin's body is nowhere to be found. And we don't even see any kind of skeleton strapped to the wall like we did previously when Martin was in there. So yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if, just like Julie, this was Martin's kind of astral form that was kind of held prisoner here, or maybe his physical body was held prisoner somewhere else, like the small root cellar maybe. I could see that being the case. But yeah, awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. I tell you a time travel joke, but you didn't like it. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Let's see what else we got. What I don't understand is why people are not questioning the fact that other people get hurt in the trees, but Victor doesn't. I mean, why do some people get hurt, and why are some people manage to kind of get to their destination? And I think it's the boy in white. Ultimately, it definitely seems like the boy in white was protecting Victor from a very young age. Right after the 1978 massacre happens, Victor does credit the boy in white with helping him survive for a while. So I wouldn't be too surprised if it's the boy in white that is ultimately kind of controlling where some of these destinations go to in the faraway trees. And if you don't have the boy in white's blessing, for lack of a better term, maybe you will end up like Dale, or have a very good chance of ending up like Dale. Whereas if the boy in white is kind of guiding your trip, it seems like he can make sure people makes it to their safe destination. But if the boy in white isn't involved, maybe that's when things get a little dicey. Maybe. Let's see what else we got. Let me scroll down. The Netflix series Bodies does a pretty good job of handling multiple timelines. The guy ends up being his own ancestor and talks himself into other timelines. Confusing to think about it, though. I don't think I've heard of that one. I might have to check it out, though. I don't think I've heard of that one. Let's see what else we got. I think Elgin is going to touch Fatima sexually in Martin's dungeon. I hope not. Man, I hope Elgin doesn't go full on freaking creep. That would be disturbing, to say the least. It would be very disturbing.
I think if we've got two more seasons of this show, hopefully, like we're gonna see more entities, yeah, for sure.
I imagine so. Yeah, I mean, because that's one thing we've all been wondering up until this point: who is going to be the main big bad? Who is the main villain of the show? Is there one main entity that is in control of Fromville itself, or is Fromville itself the main antagonist? Is it sentient in some ways? I always thought that this place was sentient, like the forest, the town. It was alive itself, and maybe that in and of itself is the main antagonist. And the purpose of beating it is saving the Ankui children, successfully saving these children where everybody else has failed. Will that ultimately topple this thing and defeat it and allow them to safely go home? But that's been a big question. Who is the main big bad? Some people think it's this kimono creature. Some think, the kimono creature, some people think that that is the main villain. I don't think she's the main villain. I think
Nah,
she is
can't
a
be.
villain. But yeah, I don't think she's the main big bad. She just doesn't seem like she's high enough to be that main big bad, but she definitely seems formidable, and I think she is going to be a problem. But I don't see the kimono creature being the main end-all big bad. I think we have yet to be introduced to that big bad. And maybe it'll even be this man in yellow that has been teased up until this point. We get that painting of the man in yellow early on in season 3, and I always thought that the man in yellow could potentially be the kind of antithesis to the boy in white. You have the boy in white on one side and the man in yellow on one side. Maybe the man in yellow is a little bit on the more nefarious side, and maybe the boy in white is actually trying to thwart him, trying to stop him. Maybe this man in yellow was one of the original parents that sacrificed the Ankui children even. But I get the feeling we are going to get introduced to some kind of main big bad at some point. I don't think it's going to be the kimono creature. It could be. I mean, I could be wrong.
I wouldn't be surprised if the parents that sacrificed the children all became entities of some point. Like maybe one became like the father of the monsters, one became the kimono lady, one became the ballerina lady, and so forth. That would be interesting.
Interesting.
We have to see the ballerina lady again. Like she's kind of just disappeared.
Yeah, I have wondered that if we will ever see the ballerina entity again, or if that was something that was just solely kind of guiding Boyd and his, guiding Boyd into kind of showing him how to use the worms on Smiley. But yeah, I mean, I suppose, if this ballerina entity shows up again, then maybe it will be another player. I don't know. I don't know. But again, you get some answers and it just leads to tons of more questions for sure. That's exactly what I said. Something like the movie Insidious, they touch on astral projection and time traveling. Yeah, again, it definitely seems like this was more Julie kind of astral projecting, or not so much astral projecting, but almost like a dreamlike state that she was in, where her physical form was, again, back in the real Fromville. But yeah, we're getting there close now, guys. We're getting some interesting stuff. We are getting some interesting things. Can the others who murdered the children be the same ones who Martin was referring to as worse than the monsters, who exit in the astral level, using the children to draw in victims into their realm? That could very well be possible, Bill. Because, yeah, we've all been wondering who are these quote-unquote others that Martin was referring to. The others are be here soon. You have to leave. It's not safe. He even tells Julie, you have to leave. It's not safe here, indicating that these quote-unquote others will be coming back at some point. And I've always wondered who these others were. And are they the original group that even trapped Martin and this worm-like entity in here in the first place? Because that's one question I've always been wondering. Who exactly trapped Martin in the first place, and who exactly put this worm entity into Martin in the first place? Could it potentially be these quote-unquote others that Victor was referring to that sacrificed the children? Very well could be. And if it is, who exactly are these others? Were they potentially the parents of these Ankui children, or their guardians in some manner? Because it seems like they were trusted loved ones of the Ankui children, which stands to reason it was probably their parents. But yeah, maybe we'll get some more definitive answers as to who the quote-unquote others were. Hopefully we will.
I can't wait, dude. It's going to be sick. I can't wait to see where they go with it. I still kind of feel that, like, the bad things in this place do want to get out of this place. And
yes.
Yeah, that's definitely how I think it's going to go.
I 100% agree. And again, I always thought from very early on that this whole Fromville place, the place that they're trapped in, that maybe that's what its purpose was. Maybe this whole place was intended to be some kind of supernatural prison to keep these monsters and entities trapped in here so they don't get into the real world. And maybe that's the goal of some of them. Maybe some of them do want to escape and get into the real world. I could definitely see that being the case.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
It would be awesome. And again, I think we'll find out definitively at some point, maybe not this season, but it seems like we are finally on the point to where we are starting to get some definitive stuff. And even the creator of the show, John Griffin, said he's very excited for people to get to the end of season 3, because from this point on, a lot of answers are going to start coming, according to them. So once season 4 comes around, I imagine it's going to be much heavier in terms of tying some of these loose ends up and finally giving us some of these long-awaited answers that we've been waiting for. It seems like we're really on the cusp of getting a lot of definitive answers now that we're finally at the end of season 3 and heading into season 4. But yeah, this was one thing I was wondering as well. Do you think Julie will remember what happened? She forgot when she was in her cicada coma. Yeah, exactly. I mean, when Julie, Randall, and Mari were in there the first time, it seems like they don't fully quite remember everything that was happening to them. Like, they remember a feeling, they remember parts of it, but it seems like they don't fully remember everything. And I was wondering that same thing. Is Julie even going to remember that she dropped this rope down to Boyd? Is she even going to remember talking to Martin? I hope she does. I really hope she does remember, because I'm really hoping she returns to this place at one point and gets some more definitive answers, and maybe even finally makes it around that corner and sees what was actually happening to these Ankui children. So I'm hoping she does remember, and I'm getting the feeling she will. I mean, just based on the way her reaction when she woke up, when Kenny and Acosta drag her out of the circumference of the ruins and she wakes up, she instantly runs and grabs Ethan and hugs him. So I get the feeling she does remember what happened in there. At least I would be surprised if she doesn't remember it.
I hope so. I've got to drop off, Jeremy. Great show. Awesome chat as always. You guys just have so many great theories. I will see you next time.
Oh, absolutely, man. Always welcome on here, my friend, and have a good one. And thank you for joining.
Cheers. Bye.
Take it easy, Mike. But yeah, I tend to think, I'm hoping Julie is going to remember. I think one of the reasons she doesn't remember her first trip was because she was physically being possessed by these cicadas. She was in that, as you mentioned, the kind of coma-like state. So I get the feeling that played a small role into why she didn't remember everything. But here, this time, she was completely awake. She was completely lucid when she walked into the circumference of the ruins. So I'm thinking she's probably going to remember what she saw in there. I hope she does, anyway. Boyd was able to destroy the ballerina music box while in that other realm. Yes, he did. And does that mean we will maybe potentially never see the ballerina again? That's very possible, too. Maybe the ballerina storyline is just over at this point and we won't see it again because, like you said, the music box is gone now. Let's see what else we got. Also, for some reason, I don't know why Martin gives me Randall vibes. Could it be? I wonder, how did he know Julie and how did he know about Boyd's wife's story? And again, that was one of the same things. I actually brought this up in my episode 8 breakdown video. And if anybody hasn't seen it already, definitely check out my episode 8 breakdown video. It is up on the channel. But I also brought up this same possibility as well. Who exactly is Martin? I would be very surprised if Martin is just Martin. I get the feeling Martin is going to eventually be revealed, that it's a character that we have already known, that we have already met. It's just a future, older version of said character. And yes, could it potentially be the older version of Randall? Could that, I mean, I suppose if nothing else, it would at least answer to us why Martin knows everything he knows. Because not only did Martin know Julie's name, but like you said, he knew Boyd. He knew about Boyd's wife. He knew about Boyd's wife having this whole theory that maybe this is all just a dream. So I wouldn't be too surprised if Martin isn't Randall, I wouldn't be too surprised if Martin is a character that we've already met, just a future version of him. I could definitely see that being a possibility for sure. I think the boy in white tried to help, and Christopher said his whack. Yeah, it seems like Christopher was not buying what the boy in white was selling. That much was very clear. And why that is, I suppose we still need to get some more context and as to what kind of relationship Christopher and the boy in white had. How often did these two talk with one another? But it seems like Christopher was not buying what the boy in white was selling. And I suppose we still need to learn so much about Christopher himself as well. Like, what exactly happened to him? What was Christopher's ultimate fate? What hand did he play in the 1978 massacre? Up until this point, I think a lot of fans were under the impression, or at least having the theory, that Christopher maybe went dark at some point, and maybe he had some kind of part to play in facilitating this massacre. But after I'm seeing this, I wouldn't be surprised if Christopher was maybe even trying to stop the massacre. Maybe Christopher wasn't as evil as we originally thought. But I'm hoping we learn a little bit more about him. We got to learn a little bit more about Christopher. Has anyone besides Christopher with the boy in white told any of these manipulation entities straight up no, that he won't do what he's told? That's a good question, Thickly, because it seems like most of these entities, most of these spirits, when they do start manipulating people in the town, it seems like they're pretty good at their manipulation tactics. Like you mentioned, I mean, Sarah in season 1 is easily manipulated by the voices that are communicating with her, so much to the point where she's willing to kill a small child. Here in season 3 now, we're seeing Elgin was kind of put through almost the exact same manipulation tactics, where just like these entities were promising Sarah in season 1 that if you do what we say, we can get you and everybody else out. This is exactly what the kimono creature is now saying. Listen to me, Elgin, do what I say, help me, and I can help you and everybody else get home. So it seems like these entities, these spirits, whatever you want to call them, they're very adept at these manipulation tactics, and they've seemed to work just about every time up until this point, until Christopher. Maybe Christopher is one of the first people who actually didn't believe what the boy in white was selling, because it seems like all the other instances that we've seen were a successful manipulation campaign. I think the boy in white is Tabitha's original kid, if reincarnation is a thing. Ooh, interesting. And that's been a pretty interesting theory, popping up over these last few weeks and months, where people think that the boy in white might potentially be Thomas, or a reincarnated version of Thomas. And I suppose anything's possible on this show, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the whole Thomas storyline was more kind of just to set up the deterioration of the marriage between Jim and Tabitha. I never really expected Thomas himself to ever play a part in the actual story other than just background information. But I could be wrong. Who knows? Maybe he'll play a bigger part, a more direct part. That's very possible. Very possible. I swear that looks like Ethan, the boy in white. It does kind of look a little similar. A little similar. The boy in white is the evil entity behind Christie's new haircut. Oh, shit. Yeah, it was all the boy in white's plan. He totally influenced Mari into giving Christie that just horrible haircut. Hashtag blame the boy in white. Interesting. Interesting. Maybe Christopher knows the boy in white is bad because, remember, the boy in white is no longer a boy, so why is he still showing himself as a boy? That's a good question. I mean, we see him appear as this kind of boy-like state, but we as the audience clearly know the boy in white is not really a boy, and even Sarah kind of brings it up where she says, I don't think he's really a boy. Because, yes, I mean, even though he appears as a boy, he's at least decades or maybe even centuries old. But if that's the case, why exactly is he still appearing in this boy-like form? Is that even a choice? Does the boy in white have another form that he can use? I mean, there was an interesting kind of idea going around that the boy in white and the kimono creature were the same entity, but I don't think that's the case. I think the boy in white and this kimono creature are two separate beings. But why does the boy in white appear as a boy? Maybe he's stuck in that form. Maybe he can't change his form. Maybe he's not really a boy, obviously, but maybe he's stuck in this boy-like form, and he's kind of been trapped for all eternity, similar to the Ankui children have been trapped in their childlike form for a while as well. Because there have been a lot of similarities between the Ankui children and the boy in white. Almost like I always thought that the boy in white was potentially an Ankui children that maybe escaped the ritual and didn't get sacrificed. But it definitely seems whatever he is, yes, he's not really a boy. He seems to be much older, at the very least 40, 50 years old. The first time we see the boy in white on our timeline is when he appears right after the 1978 massacre, or actually right before the 1978 massacre now, because we see the boy in white talking to Christopher, and it looks like this happened, this scene here of the boy in white and Christopher talking in the basement, this clearly takes place before the 1978 massacre. So at the very least, the boy in white is 40, 50 years old, maybe even much older. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe he's just stuck in this form. Maybe he can't change his form. I don't know. But yeah, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. We're finally getting some stuff. Finally getting some things. But again, they have only led to even more questions. Now that we know time travel or displacement is in play, so the monsters the monsters that says, Julie, don't you recognize me, as Ethan. Ooh, interesting, Xavier. Interesting. Yeah, like if Ethan potentially gets turned into a monster at some point, and maybe that kind of completes the cycle, I don't know. I mean, I suppose anything's possible. If they're going like full-on time travel, time displacement kind of thing, that will actually have ramifications in the real world, not just inside the circumference of those ruins, then I suppose anything is possible. But I kind of thought that the whole time travel thing or the whole time displacement thing was only possible inside the circumference of those ruins. Because as soon as Julie gets pulled out of the ruins, we see that she wakes up back in the real world. So I'm not quite sure if that dungeon or those kind of, the time walk that Julie did, I'm not quite sure if that can be used as a mechanism to travel to other time periods. I get the feeling it's more of, located just within the circumference of those ruins. But who knows? Who knows it's possible here? Who knows? I think the body lying there is Martin, and again, it very well could be. Maybe that body that Elgin finds in the hidden room down in the root cellar, maybe that is Martin's physical form, and maybe it was just his kind of astral form that we saw locked up inside the dungeon. That's very possible. Very possible. And yes, Christopher's body was never found either, right? As far as we know, we haven't learned any definitive information as to what Christopher's fate really was. Through Victor, through Miranda, through anybody, we don't really know what happened to Christopher. The only thing we get is from Victor, saying that his mother came up to him and Eloise and said, go and hide somewhere where Christopher can't find you. So at some point, Christopher and Miranda seem to have become at odds, or were on opposite sides at some point. If Miranda is telling Victor and Eloise to hide somewhere where Christopher can't find you, at least Miranda was under the assumption that Christopher might have been some kind of threat. But in terms of what ultimately happened to Christopher, did he die during the 1978 massacre? Did he survive and die somewhere else? We really have no idea what happened to Christopher. Some people think Christopher is still alive. I think that's a little less likely, considering if he was still alive, he would be in his late 90s right now. But hopefully at some point we will learn the definitive fate as to what really happened to Christopher, because that's still a huge question mark as to where he ended up and if he even died in the massacre like everybody else did, or if he survived it. How was Victor supposedly able to walk all the way down the basement, creaky stairs, and listen to the boy in white and Christopher's convo without being noticed? That was one thing we were talking about in the Discord watch party as well, because it'd stand to reason, like you said, those old stairs, those creakily wood stairs like that are always going to make a ton of sound when someone is walking down them. But we do get one little line from Victor in this episode, where he does state that he was trying to be quiet because he didn't want to get caught, something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, he's standing right there, like freaking 2 feet away from them. You mean to tell me Christopher didn't notice Victor standing on the stairs right there? So yeah, I was wondering that too. I was definitely wondering that too, for sure. Let's see what else we got. It's definitely a loop. This experiment has been done before. That's why that monster jock dude said he knew Julie and said, don't you remember me? Because the jock monster was part of the previous experiment. And that very well could be possible. That very well could be possible. It seemed like at the beginning, the monsters were kind of just using those kind of tactics to get inside people's heads. Like this younger monster was coming up to Julie saying, hey, Julie, don't you recognize me? Just as a way to kind of tantalize her and draw her in. But maybe it was a little bit more than that. Maybe there was something deeper there that hasn't been revealed yet. That's possible. I could definitely see that being possible. Because in terms of the loops, yes, it definitely seems like there is some sort of loop, some sort of reoccurring event that is happening over and over and over again. And it seems like it always ends with some kind of big massacre. And whereas the real objective is to save these Ankui children, I get the feeling if somebody does successfully save these Ankui children, that will most likely break the time loop. But until then, yes, it does seem like these events have been just happening over and over and over again throughout Lord knows how many different generations. Very possible. Very possible. My theory is the boy in white is somehow related to Victor. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. There was a very weird, I don't know if it was a typo or if it was something that was retconned, but very early on during season 1, when season 1 had just come out, there was a very interesting description of the boy in white. The boy in white, his actor, you had his actor name, which was Vox Smith, but the character that the boy in white was officially designated as in the beginning was young Victor. Now, a lot of us were wondering, was that some kind of typo? Was that some kind of retcon that the show had changed? But very early on in season 1, the boy in white's designation was young Victor, which led a lot of people to think that Victor and the boy in white were potentially the same thing, just 2 different iterations. Or maybe that Victor conjured the boy in white from his subconscious in some manner, just born out of his trauma. I don't know myself personally. I mean, these are just theories that were going around early in season 1. But at one point, the boy in white's designation was designated as young Victor. But again, I'm not sure if that was a mistake, a typo, or if that has been retconned. It's really hard to tell. But could they be connected in a deeper way than we know? I suppose it's possible. Again, it seems like just about anything is possible with this friggin' show. Victor's memory of the massacre is suspect. Hopefully someone will astral project back to that night and we'll see what really happened. That would be interesting. That would very be interesting because, yeah, the show has very much set Victor up until this point to be that kind of quote-unquote unreliable narrator. And like I say all the time, George R.R. Martin would love Victor in terms of the unreliable narrator trope that he's playing with. But yes, it's, us as the audience, we're kind of left to wonder how much can we fully trust in terms of Victor's memories? How much of it is accurate and how much of it is he himself just not really remembering right? So yes, he gets that memory very early on in season 1. Actually, season 1, episode 4 is when Victor first starts remembering the massacre. He hears the dog barking, and the barking of the dog instantly brings back the memory of the massacre for Victor in season 1. And he runs right back to his room in Colony House right after that, and he finds the drawing of the massacre, which tells him that it was real and it wasn't just a dream. Because, Victor, that's how he kind of differentiates dreams from actual real events that happened in the past. If it's real, he draws it. So when Victor started remembering the massacre early in season 1 and then ran back to Colony House and saw the drawing that confirmed it, at least Victor is under the assumption that that is how the massacre happened. But could it potentially be that the massacre happened, maybe there were some other details that Victor doesn't quite remember yet? I could totally see that being possible. And maybe we will actually see somebody kind of go back to that time period and actually see what definitively happened. And again, we still need to find out what Christopher's role was in all this. What role did he play in the massacre? Did he help facilitate it like a lot of fans think? Or was he potentially even trying to stop it, maybe? I don't know. I don't know. I think everything already happened, but it's on a loop and keeps repeating itself. Like maybe at some point it restarts. I don't know. No, and I think there's very much evidence for that potentially being the case. Again, I mean, in terms of just the boy in white starting his whole story off with, the end starts at the beginning. The answer to the end is at the beginning, and we kind of see him bringing his hands together, indicating this kind of 2 timelines interceding, almost like there is some kind of time loop or reoccurring events happening over and over and over again. And I get the feeling the only thing that's going to break that is successfully saving the Ankui children. I think that is the ultimate goal here. Save the children, stop the cycle. I think that's where it's ultimately heading. But yeah, it definitely seems like there is a lot of evidence for this whole kind of time loop history repeating happening over and over and over again. We're getting a lot of evidence for that, for sure. OMG, what if the plot twist is that Miranda killed everyone? Yes, not Christopher. You are speaking my language now, Forever Autumn. And we actually were talking about this the other night, because up until this point, we were led to believe that Christopher was potentially gone dark. Maybe this symbol kind of drove Christopher mad, and that maybe he was influenced by the monsters, an entity, or some other means into help facilitating this massacre. She told the kids to hide and not come out. What if she pulled an Abby, shot everyone to save them? Well, I don't think she shot everyone. I mean, I guess if we do eventually find out that Victor's memory isn't 100% accurate, up until now, it seems like whatever killed everybody during the massacre, it seems like it was the monsters. Because we see the state that all the bodies are in. They're completely ripped apart in some cases. Like, that's not something a human could have done. But if we find out later on that Victor's memory isn't quite accurate, and maybe it was Miranda that had a hand in facilitating this massacre, maybe she was actually the one who kind of got compromised, and maybe Christopher was actually the one trying to stop it. It could be a very interesting plot twist, as you said. I mean, us as, it seems like the majority of the fandom up until this point, a lot of people have been thinking that Christopher had a hand in setting up this massacre. But what if it was the exact opposite? They kind of just pull the rug out from under our feet, where maybe Christopher was trying to stop the massacre and maybe Miranda became compromised. I think that would be an awesome plot twist if that was the case. And I could see that being possible too. I feel like there's definitely pieces of that could potentially fit, for sure. It's funny, the boy in white is having the conversation underground. Well, that's the thing about the boy in white. Just about every time that the faraway trees are used, every destination that the people end up in is underground. Every single time, except for the one time Tabitha used the main faraway tree and ends up at the lighthouse. If we go back, every other instance on the show, ever since season 1 to right now, every time someone uses one of the faraway trees, the destination always ends up being underground. Every single time, whether it's Victor ending up in the caves underground, or Julie ending up in the root cellar when she uses it, or Boyd ending up underground when he goes through it. Every single time one of these characters use the faraway trees, the destination is underground somewhere. Even Dale, unfortunately, was left underground when he went through his faraway tree. Unfortunately, he just got stuck in a freaking wall, but still technically underground. So yeah, it seems like the destinations of these faraway trees always seem to kind of spit people out somewhere beneath the surface, which I don't know if that's a hint to something greater or if it's just coincidence. But I tend to think a lot of these things on the show aren't just coincidence and are going to have a deeper meaning. What if Christopher is Martin, hid in the cellar but made a deal with the music box monster, ended up in the dungeon for decades, and would have been in his 80s or 90s by the time Boyd found him? Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Again, I suppose it's possible. I feel like they do look a little bit different, but you never know like what someone's physical attributes are going to look like after being locked in some kind of dungeon for a very extended period of time. Because even Martin seemed like, based on what Martin was saying to Boyd, or at least what information Boyd got from his interaction with Martin, was that the worms were the only thing that was keeping him alive. So if Christopher was Martin, then maybe that would explain why he was still alive in his 80s or 90s. Maybe it was the worms that were keeping him alive this whole time. So that's an interesting theory, Colonel. It's a very interesting one. I like it. Yep, I have that screenshot, bro, of the season 1 monster saying, "Julie, don't you remember me?" Yeah, I mean, yeah, right on the porch. I believe it's season 1, episode 2, where he kind of comes right around the corner of the porch and says, "Hey, Julie, don't you recognize me?" And even the look on Julie's face, she almost kind of is staring at him, almost like she did kind of recognize him. So no, maybe you guys are onto something there. I like it. They're doing the boy in white like they do pregnant women shows when it's not written into the script. LOL, hiding him because he's aging out. And yeah, they are definitely doing that thickly. And it's and I feel like that's why we're not getting a whole lot of screen time of the boy in white, and that's why we're not getting a whole lot of scenes of the boy in white, because yes, the actor playing the boy in white, Vox Smith, I mean, at this point, just like Ethan is growing up like a freaking weed, these kids are going to have beards by the time they get to season 4 or season 5. So yeah, I do think that's why they're using the boy in white sparingly and only putting him in scenes that are absolutely necessary for him to be in, because the actor himself is just getting way too old. So I wouldn't even be too surprised if at some point they need to even recast the role and just cast a different younger actor to play the boy in white going forward. Because at some point, the actor playing the boy in white now, he's just going to look too old at some point. He's going to continue to age. He's at that age where kids start growing like weeds at that age. So yeah, at some point they're going to have to either recast him or they'll have to continue using him very sparingly because he just looks so much older. And again, they even have that same problem with Ethan. And it's always a problem that shows come up against whenever you have a very long-running series, and you cast child actors in that long-running series. This is always a risk that you run into, where kids just start to grow up, they start to get older and older, and in the time period of the actual show, only a few weeks have passed, only a few months have passed since the Matthews family first arrived here in Fromville. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that Ethan looks years older when they've only been there for a few months. So yes, that's always one of those risks that productions run into when they cast child actors in a long-running series. It gets to a point where you either have to kill the kid off at some point, recast the role or write some kind of time jump into the story to explain why they look so much older. So I imagine it'll probably be one of those things. At some point, they'll either have to, if not kill the boy in white off, maybe just recast the role and have a younger actor start to play him. Or again, maybe write in some kind of time jump. I don't know. But yeah, both Ethan and the boy in white are they're getting old. They're getting very old, and it's definitely starting to show for sure. For sure. And this was another thing I have been wondering from the beginning, and I only have one potential answer. How did Victor know that the rock he drew the happy face on would appear in the same area? Yes, F. Huge question I've been wondering myself as well, because we've been led to believe up until this point that the destinations of the faraway trees are random. You know, even Victor says it in the beginning. You could end up, you can end up somewhere else, or you can end up in a freaking mountain if you're not careful. So it seems like the destinations were random. Yet for some reason, when Victor drops that rock in the faraway tree, he even pushes Ethan back, almost like he's anticipating it landing right in front of him. And the only thing I could think of is maybe the faraway trees are only meant for humans. Maybe when humans go through them, it's a little more unpredictable and they get sent to random destinations. But if you try to put an object in the faraway tree, maybe it just spits it back out right where you originally put it in. That's really the only explanation I could really think of. Because, like you said, we were led to believe that this was all random destinations, but Victor seemed to know that that rock was going to land right there. Now, was Victor just hoping that the rock was going to land there and got lucky? I don't know. I tend to think that maybe he knew that these faraway trees are only meant for people, and that if you put an object in it, it just spits it right back out. So that's kind of the only explanation I had for that, but maybe there's another one. Maybe there's another explanation. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, he needs a Gatorade. Exactly. Yeah, he told Ethan to watch, like he knew, like he was about to do a trick. Exactly, almost like he knew it was going to fall right in front of him. And again, that's the only thing I can think of is maybe the faraway trees work different for objects as they do for humans. Maybe if you put an object in it, again, it just kind of spits it back out. Maybe. But I've been wondering that myself. Definitely been wondering that. What do we think Victor meant by the pictures always remembered so I didn't have to, but I never drew one? I think that's extremely interesting. Yes, I think what he was referring to there was that he never drew a picture of this memory. And that's why Victor was having such a hard time remembering this story that he thought the doll told to Christopher, because this was a memory, or this was an experience that Victor just never wrote down. Victor always says the pictures remember so I don't have to, because Victor's mind, it seems like Victor is very much used to his mind failing him, almost like Victor knows his memories aren't very reliable. So he draws things down so he can remember them at later dates. But here, I get the feeling that this was probably one of those instances where he can't remember because this is something he never drew. He never actually drew this instance down. This interaction that he saw between the boy in white and Christopher, he never drew that down. So it was never something that he could remember, I guess. But yeah, it seems like, because to Victor, the drawings that he draws, they're memories for him. They're not just drawings that he's drawing to have a good time. He's drawing these things so he can remember them later on down the road if his mind fails him, which it seems like it does often. Let's see what else we got. I think the season would end like the first one. Someone is going to end up in the real world or some other realm in another time in the past, like the show La Brea. Interesting. I mean, I suppose it's possible. I mean, I get the feeling at some point somebody is going to end up in the real world. And obviously the whole show will probably end up ending with them all getting out, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe just one singular character maybe makes it out through some other means towards the end of one of the seasons. Maybe that's possible. Either way, I definitely think it's going to end on a cliffhanger. Whether the cliffhanger is somebody making it to the real world or not, I'm not sure, but I would be very surprised if season 3 doesn't end on a cliffhanger. I seem to remember vaguely one of the writers stating that almost every season, they're planning anyway for just about every season to end on a big cliffhanger. But I guess we'll find out. I guess we shall find out. All right, let's see what else we got. Yeah, the teen in white, for real. It's gonna be the teen in white next. Or next is gonna be the adult in white. This kid is he's growing like a freaking weed. growing like a freaking weed. All right, let's see what else we got. Talk about the Morse code that's being messaged by the lights and exit signs. Now, that was a very interesting theory. This was something that I never even thought of myself, but I did see a few people talking about it recently. That maybe there is a deeper explanation for why the electricity is flickering on and off, and the music boxes and the light signs exits. Maybe it's not just random kind of fluctuations of electricity. What if it's actual Morse code? And that's a cool theory. I mean, it's again, it's something I didn't think of, but I think it could be really cool. I mean, if these lights, if some kind of entity or some kind of spirit are using these lights to attempt to communicate with the people of Fromville, that could be very interesting. I imagine if somebody does end up in Fromville, or if there is somebody already in Fromville that knows Morse code, that could be pretty interesting if at some point they recognize that the lights flickering on and off isn't as random as it originally appears. Maybe it is some kind of message, some kind of spirit trying to communicate with people. That's a cool theory. Again, it's something I never thought of myself, but that's been a cool one. That is a really cool one. What if Julie goes down there to hang up with Martin? Oof, maybe. Maybe, again, I'd be very surprised if Julie doesn't return to that place at some point. It just, again, just based on the way that it ended, with her getting closer and closer to coming around that bend when she was down in those caves, and you could see the kind of light coming from that opening that she was getting closer and closer to. It almost seemed like she was getting closer to seeing something even bigger. Again, maybe she was actually about to see what was really happening to these Onkui children, but unfortunately, Kenny and Acosta and Ethan pull her out of the circumference of the ruins before she manages to get that far. But at this point, I would be very surprised if Julie doesn't return to those ruins. I get the feeling she will definitely be back. If not this season, then definitely next season. She will definitely return to those ruins, I think. And I think she'll see some other things. And maybe this will be one of the mechanisms that the writers do give us some more definitive answers. Maybe we do see Julie visiting some other time periods at some point, and that will give us some more definitive answers and give us some more history on the town. But yeah, I would be very surprised if she doesn't return to this place at some point. I think that's all but assured at this point. But I guess we'll see. I guess we shall see. Let's see what else we got. I think Martin had a marine tattoo. Yeah, he did. Martin had a marine tattoo. And I think that's going to be a very clear indication. If we see somebody in our time period with a marine tattoo, that I think will give us some more evidence that maybe Martin is a character that we've already met, just an older version of him. But yes, we need to look out for that marine tattoo. If a character that's already in here, or a character that we haven't been introduced to yet, gets revealed at some point that they have a marine tattoo, that is going to be something to keep a close eye out for, I think. For sure. For sure. Let's see what else we got. We got Grimy. Thank you so much, Grimy, for the $5. Is it possible Thomas is the monster that said, "What's wrong? Don't you recognize me, Julie?" He has been calling the house phone. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. I don't know. I mean, I feel like, again, when it comes to this whole Thomas thing, I tend to think that the whole Thomas character was solely introduced just to kind of give us, the audience, a little bit more backstory and a little bit more detail as to why Jim and Tabitha's marriage is so bad. But maybe it could potentially be a point where Thomas is someone else. Again, I tend to think Thomas really did die as an infant. I don't really think he's a monster. I don't think he's another character that's secretly hiding on the show. I just always took this whole Thomas storyline as just to give us as the audience a little bit more backstory and a little bit more information as to why Jim and Tabitha have such a tumultuous, such a bad marriage. But could it potentially be possible that Thomas didn't die and he's actually some kind of other character? I suppose it's possible, but I think it's a little unlikely. But again, you never know what's possible with a show like this, where they kind of pull the rug out from under our feet every other episode, it seems like. So I suppose anything is possible. I think it's a little unlikely personally for me, but I suppose anything is possible. But thank you so much, Grimy, for the $5. And I owe you a whoa. Awesome stuff. But it feels good knowing that we are finally finally getting some real answers, because I know that's one thing I've been seeing it in my comment section all year, every single week. There's been, quite a substantial amount of people really wanting answers, and I totally understand that. Like, I definitely understand people wanting answers. I myself, I'm not in a huge rush for answers, just because I'm really enjoying the journey and I'm really enjoying just the story that these characters are going on. So I'm not in a big rush for answers myself. I do want answers, don't get me wrong, but that was something that I've seen a lot of fans were really hankering for, some definitive answers this season. And all season, we've been getting promises from the cast and the crew stating that in season 3, we will finally get some real definitive answers that actually mean things. And it seems like we are there. Again, still have 2 more episodes. And with these last 2 episodes, again, being titled Revelations Part 1 and 2, I get the feeling we are going to get some other big reveals, but it feels good knowing that we are finally at the point where we are going to start getting some real definitive answers. And just again, just in this episode alone, we get a couple really good answers that the whole fandom has been wondering for a very, very long time, in terms of who dropped that rope down to Boyd, which again did kind of turn into a meme at one point, but it was still an answer that the fandom did want. And of course, we got the answer as to how the farway trees were created, the actual origin for the farway trees, which again, it's nice to know that we're getting some definitive answers finally. So I'm happy. I feel like the show's heading into a really good space. Really, really good space. Yeah, these last 2 episodes will give us the answers we want. I think they will. Again, I mean, I feel like they wouldn't have titled the episodes Revelations Part 1 and Part 2 if they weren't planning on giving us something like really big and really definitive. So yeah, I would be very surprised if we don't have some big answers coming over these next 2 episodes. I think we're going to get something pretty big. I hope so, anyway. Certainly hope so. Elgin does have a stone in that room, because that's crazy. What if all the monsters pull up and they all need a monster child? That would be bad news. That would certainly be bad news. And yes, we are getting more questions. I feel like, but after this episode, I feel like we did get both. We definitely did get definitive answers. I feel like that's 100% fact that we definitely did get answers. We not only got the answer to who dropped the rope, but we got a pretty definitive answer as to how the faraway trees were created, which are, again, they are definitive answers, but they definitely are leading to some more questions as well. So I feel like, and again, I have a feeling that's probably how the show is mostly going to go. We'll get some interesting definitive answers, but those answers will probably end up leading to more questions, for sure. For sure. Poured their hopes into the roots that became the tree in the road, when people get trapped. They created the Fromville dimension where everyone is drawn into because their connection with the Ankui children is hope. Well, I don't think that was the roots that they poured their hope into. The roots that the Ankui children poured their hope into ended up becoming the first faraway tree. And even Sarah says that in the actual scene, when Victor says that the children poured their hopes into the roots, and that roots became the tree. And Sarah says the faraway tree. So it seems like the hope that the children poured the roots that the children poured their hopes into, I don't think it was the tree in the road that people see when they get trapped there. It was the origin of the faraway tree, it seemed, not the tree in the road. At least that's kind of how I took the scene. I mean, it seems like that's what they were saying in the scene anyway, that when Victor is finally recounting this story of these children being told some kind of story that gave them hope, they then poured their hope into the roots, and that roots became the first tree, the first faraway tree, which again is the very same vision that Jade saw. When we look back at the end of season 2, we were all wondering, what exactly is this vision that Jade is seeing? Jade is seeing the vision of the Ankui children being placed on these 7 different blocks of stone. We see the roots above them, and we were wondering, what exactly is Jade seeing here? Now we know that the vision that Jade was seeing at the end of season 2 was the vision of them creating the first faraway tree. Oof, man. And again, the acting of Scott McCord is just so freaking good in this scene, in this episode, and everything. I mean, every scene that he's in, he's really good. But I think Scott McCord really shined in this episode. Eric Grant, now that Rob's gone, I can finally eat my ribs. Good to see you, Eric. I hope you're doing good, my friend. Welcome, welcome. We got Crazy Mad for $9.99. Wow, thank you so much, Crazy Mad. Very much appreciate you, my friend. 353 people in chat, less than 100 likes. That's totally fine. I feel weird asking for likes. I'm here just to have good conversations with fellow From fans. So I feel weird asking for likes, but I appreciate the 350 people hanging out in here. Absolutely. Those are rookie numbers. We need to bump those up. Also, Jeremy is a beautiful man. He's I mean, Crazy Mad, he loves giving me compliments because he knows compliments make me blush. I hate compliments. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. So thank you so much, Crazy Mad, for throwing me off my game. You love doing it, don't you, my friend? But thank you. I very much appreciate you. And here is your whoa. I begrudgingly give you a whoa. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Sarah assumes that, but it seems like even more than Sarah assuming that, we also, just based on the rest of the story that Victor says to that the rest of the story that Victor's recounting right there, he says that in order to save the children, you need to go through the tree. So it seems like the roots that the children poured their hopes into did become the first faraway tree. I don't think it was the tree in the road, because when it comes to the tree in the road, everybody sees a different tree. Nobody sees the same tree in the road. The tree the Matthews family saw is completely different from the tree that Boyd and his family saw, which is another completely different tree that the ambulance saw. So it seems like the trees that are in the road are kind of they're different for everybody that shows up here. And I think whatever area that you're driving in when you get pulled into Fromville, you're probably going to see a tree that is similar to that area that you're in, because it seems like everybody sees a completely different tree in the road. That's what led me to believe that this whole pouring your hope into the roots was most likely talking about the faraway trees, not the tree in the road. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it is the faraway trees. But the question now is, which faraway tree is the original? And I think I saw somebody asking that in the chat, and I wonder that too. They have to find the original faraway tree. All the others are replicas. That's why Dale died. And could that potentially be the case? I was wondering, what is the original tree? Now, part of me originally thought that it was the original bottle tree, the one that Tabitha went through, like the main faraway tree, the one that seemed to always take people to the lighthouse. Part of me thought this right here is the original tree. But that maybe that's not the case, though. Maybe the original tree is somewhere else out there and has yet to be found. Because yes, as you mentioned, it seems like there is one tree that is the original one, and the rest might be replicas of that original one. But what is the true original faraway tree? Is it this one here, or is there another faraway tree that is like the true main one that we haven't seen yet? I suppose we'll have to wait and find out more. But I kind of thought this was the main one. This was the original one, but maybe it's not. Maybe there is another one out there that is the true original first faraway tree. That's possible as well. And if that is the case, yes, they definitely need to find that tree. Whatever the original faraway tree is, they need to find it, because it seems like the boy in white also told Christopher that he needs to go through that specific tree in order to save the children. And since we already saw Tabitha go through this tree and it didn't really lead to her saving the children, at least not yet, could that be an indication that this isn't the actual original tree? Or could that maybe be an indication that Tabitha isn't really meant to save the Onkui children? Maybe it's actually really meant to be Jade. Because when I see Jade's storyline and how much it very much parallels Christopher, maybe Jade is the one who really needs to go through this tree and save the Onkui children, because we know Jade has been having visions of the Onkui children as well, just like Tabitha. Or maybe it's a combination of the two. Maybe Jade and Tabitha both need to save these children together. Maybe that's why they're two of the only characters that have seen the children. Maybe. But no, that is an interesting question. Is this the original tree here? Or is there another tree that was the original one that we have yet to see, I guess is the question. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I originally I thought that this one was the original tree, but I could be wrong. I very well could be wrong. It could be another one, maybe. That's definitely possible. That is definitely possible. Awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. Let's see what else we got. Let's see what else we got. Sarah was ready to sacrifice Ethan his second day in town. This could have all been over. Maybe that would have just ended all of it right there. Yeah, maybe. Its upper branches are entwined, and it looks like a man praying. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, awesome. Awesome stuff. If the kids were burned in the dark and the monsters only come out in the dark, that could be their origin, maybe. Oh, now that's interesting. I mean, could these Onkui children have been sacrificed and turned into like the actual monsters? Was their physical body turned into the monsters, and their kind of spirit form is stuck in these Onkui children-like states? That's an interesting theory, Mr. Kung Fu. Yeah, I don't know. Because that's another huge question. How exactly do the monsters fit into all this? It seems like we're getting some kind of answer in terms of how the faraway tree was created, how who threw that freaking rope down to Boyd. Which again, it's nice to get some some definitive answers for once, but we still have a huge question as to how do the monsters fit into all of this as well. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I suppose it's possible. I suppose it's possible. They've been they've been smoking the original faraway tree up at Colony House. Maybe the green thumb is a little greener than we originally thought. Maybe they're puffing on the magic tree the entire time. Maybe that's true. If you keep walking on the road, you would end up at the first spot once again. Does that work if you keep walking around for the woods forest? Does it return you back to the town? That's a good question. Because like you said, it seems like the road, if you just keep driving up the road, you always just end up back in town. It seems like the only way to get further out and to make any progress actually going to another place is if you go through the woods. But we've seen how vast these woods are. Like even when Tabitha is at the top of the lighthouse and we get that little bit of a look of everything around her, these woods are absolutely vast. We can't even see how far they go on for. We can't even see the end to them, how vast this place is. But could the woods be operating in a similar manner as the town road does in the middle, where if you go up the road enough times, you always end up back in the town? Or maybe if you go into the woods, if you eventually go far enough, will you eventually end up right back where you started? I suppose that's possible. I definitely suppose that's possible. But as of right now, it seems like the only way to get anywhere further out there is through the woods, not through the road. But yeah, I don't know. If you go far enough into the woods, will it bring you right back to the beginning? Maybe. Maybe. Awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. Could Jade not just look from where he was in the cave from that top spot, like it was not that deep in there? In terms of like actually finding where the original faraway tree was, have somebody go back down into the caves and go back into that open area where he originally saw the roots and see where that is in the ground, in the above level, like, in relation. That could potentially be one answer as to where they could maybe track down the original tree. If you have somebody down in the caves and somebody on the ground up top kind of lining up in the same spot, maybe finding that original tree. That's possible. That's definitely possible. Awesome stuff. Yeah, Dale died because he didn't have a destination number to exit. And maybe that was it. A lot of people were thinking that Dale kind of came into his mishap because people were taking bottles down from the bottle tree. Maybe these numbers inside these bottles were in some way coordinates or directional in terms of that is why this tree always took people to the lighthouse, because it had those bottles. But ever since Jim, Jade, and Tabitha took some of those bottles down, maybe that's why Dale had a little bit of a misfortune when he went through it. That could very well be possible. Actually, I really like Jim. I just got to give him a hard time, says Takes. Again, Jim's not my favorite character, but I've tried to kind of find some redeeming qualities within Jim, because I know the entire fandom, not the entire, but I know a big portion of the fandom really doesn't like Jim, or at least a big portion of the fans that hang out here, which is totally cool. Everybody's free to like or dislike any character they want. It's totally cool. But I'm always trying to find some kind of redeeming quality in Jim, just because I kind of want to think that he is going to have a bigger purpose, a bigger meaning. But yeah, he's making it harder. He's definitely making it very hard, especially with how Jim treated Jade in this episode. Just complete projection, just projecting all of his shit right onto Jade. So yeah, I try to hold out hope for Jim, but again, he does not make it easy on us. He does not make it easy. But awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. Remember, Jade saw blood in season 1, so that's true. Victor's onto something. But why people getting these visions, but nobody's trying to grab Boy in White, grab his little ass? Really, right? I mean, Boyd said something earlier in the season where he wants to trap one of the monsters to finally interrogate it and learn some more information. But fuck that. I kind of tend to agree with you, Westside. Grab up the frickin' Boy in White and let's finally get some frickin' answers for once. Go Jack Bauer on his ass. I could see that. That'd be fun. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Jade goes through the faraway tree, ends up in the dungeon. He is Martin. I wondered that too, Karen. But the only thing that threw me off of that was the Marine tattoo. It doesn't seem like Jade was ever a Marine at any point in time. So the Marine tattoo was one of the things that kind of threw me off of Martin potentially being Jade. Again, that Marine tattoo, I think, is going to be a big giveaway. Once we see somebody in our timeline that has that Marine tattoo, then I think we need to pay a little bit closer attention to that character. But no, Jade was one of the possibilities I thought of as well. But again, the only thing that made me think it wasn't Jade was the Marine tattoo. It doesn't seem like Jade is the Marine type. Randall, on the other hand, does kind of have some more of that militaristic kind of vibe to him. That's why I kind of thought maybe Randall could potentially be an older version of Randall. If at some point we find out that Randall served, then maybe it's something to take a closer look at, I guess. But it's hard to know. It is hard to know. Why were the children sacrificed by their loved ones? That's what needs answers. Yes, Robert. Yes, indeed. Because again, we get the mechanism as to what happened, but we don't know who did it or why. Who sacrificed these children? Was it their loved ones? Was it their actual parents that sacrificed them? And if so, why? What was the end goal? What was the reason why they sacrificed these Ankui children? Were the parents or this group of people, this group of loved ones, were they searching for some kind of immortality? Was there some other kind of dark goal that they were trying to achieve? That is the next question that we really need an answer to. We know what happened. Now we need to know why it happened and who facilitated it. But maybe, yeah, hopefully we'll learn that. I mean, maybe not in these final 2 episodes, but I imagine we will eventually learn what the true story is. Why these children were sacrificed, who sacrificed them, what were they hoping to achieve by doing this sacrifice? Yeah, big questions that we still need answered, for sure. For sure. But yeah, this has been just I really enjoyed this episode. Episode 6 and 7, I did enjoy, but they were a little bit slower in terms of they weren't really advancing the plot a whole lot. We got some really good character developing moments. Again, some really good world building moments in just about every single one of these episodes. But now we are finally getting into the thick of it. We're getting into the, next week will be the penultimate episode. And usually when you get to the penultimate episode of a series, usually you get something pretty big in that episode. And again, with 9 and 10 being titled Revelations Part 1 and 2, I think we have some pretty big answers on the horizon, something really big, something maybe even more definitive than what we got in this episode. So I definitely have very high hopes for episodes 9 and 10. But here we are, folks. Here we are. We are finally on the way to getting some definitive answers. And it's awesome. It's great to know that after 3 seasons, we are definitely getting to the point that we're going to start getting some real definitive stuff that actually moves this plot forward in a more substantial manner. So I'm pumped. I am absolutely pumped. Well, I don't want anyone to love me that much. I mean, either. Shit. I mean, if that's the price of love, shit. Count me loveless, I guess. Fuck that. Fuck that. But no, I'm super pumped. I'm very much excited for the future of From. I cannot wait to see episode 9 and 10 and see what other kind of big revelations they have in store for us. What other kind of big answers are they going to give us before the season ends up? And on top of that, not only what other answers are we going to get, but what other big questions and what other big storylines are they going to set up for season 4 and beyond? Because I get the feeling we're going to get a good mix of both. By the time season 3 ends, I think we'll get some more definitive answers, yes, but I also think those answers, just like these, are also going to lead to some more bigger questions for season 4 and beyond. So I'm very much expecting a pretty healthy mix of both answers and new questions. And it seems like that's what they've been promising us all season, that we would get definitive answers, but some of the answers would also lead to more questions. So I get the feeling that's probably how the whole tone of the show is going to continue to go until we get to the very end. We'll get some answers that will give us some things definitive, but those definitive things will also just pop up some more questions as well. So I definitely see the rest of the show kind of playing out in a very similar manner. And I'm totally fine with that. Again, I'm not in the hugest rush for answers, but it is very exciting to know that we are on the cusp of finally getting some real definitive answers. So I am very excited for the future of From. But I am going to have to close it down. Again, I know this was a little bit of a shorter stream than I usually do, but I will also be going live this Friday for a very special edition of Fromville Friday. So I promise you I will make it up for an extra long stream this Friday. I promise it will not be a quick 1-2 hour stream. We'll go for a pretty definitive amount of time, like we usually do, 3-4 hours around there. So unfortunately, I do have to close this one down a little sooner than I would like because I have to get up at the crack of dawn tomorrow morning. I have to be up in 5 hours, actually. Shit, I didn't realize it's already 12. I got to be up in less than 5 hours for work. But again, to make up for it, I will be going live this Friday again for a very special Fromville Friday stream. And of course, we will also be live Saturday and Sunday like we usually are every week as well for our pregame shows and for our live watch parties as well. But before I close it out, the one thing I always like to ask you guys in the chat, how do you guys score episode 8? On a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being horrible and 10 being perfect, what score would you guys give episode 8? For me, I would give this one, I got to give it I'm kind of teetering back and forth between 8.5 and 9, but seeing that we really did get some definitive answers and finally found out who dropped that frickin' rope, I got to give this episode a solid 9. So for me, solid 9 for episode 8. Very excited for the future of From, and looking forward to seeing how these final 2 episodes play out. Awesome stuff. We got a 7.5 in the chat. Awesome. We got a solid 8 from Thickly. We got a 9 from Football. We got another 9 from Illegal Mods. Kiwi Skirt giving it a respectable solid 8, just like CeeLo as well. Awesome stuff. We got Woodrow giving it an 8 as well. Got a 7.5 from Dizzy Guy. Awesome stuff. F gives it a 7. Catalyst gives it an 8 as well. We got another 7 in the chat from Susan. We got an 8 from Amy. We got a 9 from Steed. Awesome stuff. We got a 7 from Wild Marjoram. We got a 7 from Westside. A 7.9 avocados from Doc Hayes. Awesome. Orlando giving it a solid 9 as well. 7.8, respectable score. Awesome stuff. Jumpin' Slash gives it an 8.5 as well. Forever Autumn, a 7.75. Unlicensed nurses. Yes, love it. Vanessa gives it an 8, solid. Xavier gives it an 8.5, great score. We got a 7.9, another 8 in the chat, another 8 in the chat. We got 9 peaches from Samuel. Hey, gotta love them peaches. Got to love those peaches. We got a 9 from Hollywood Pineapple. We got a 9.5 from Gina. Awesome score. Glad you guys are enjoying it. So it seems like most of you guys are enjoying this episode, which is great to see. I mean, when we got to episode 6 and 7, we saw a few 1s, 2s, and even 3s in the chat for some of our scores, which again is totally fine. I mean, we just want to hear what you guys thought. Whatever your score is what your score is. I mean, if it's a low score, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's awesome to know it seems like most people did enjoy this episode, which is really great. And I'm looking forward to it. I am looking forward to see how this season is going to end. Bring on episodes 9 and 10. Give us Revelations Part 1 and Part 2. And hopefully, along with it, some more interesting answers that also set up some really cool storylines for Season 4 and beyond. Awesome stuff. And we got another 8 in the chat as well. So good stuff. Respectable scores all around. But again, I want to give a big thank you to everybody who supported the channel tonight, from all of the super chats and the memberships that we have gone from Michael Diche, Gina, Sandra, CeeLo, Jen Hack, Grimy, and Crazy Mad. Thank each and every one of you for all of these super chats and for all the gifted memberships. I can't thank each and every one of you enough. It really helps out the channel, and I appreciate each and every one of you. But I hope you guys are having a great start to the rest of your week. And again, I will be live again this Friday for a special Fromville Friday stream to make up for this stream being a little shorter than our usual one. And of course, my episode 8 breakdown is up on the channel right now. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. It's the latest video that we have uploaded on the channel. And I will also have my episode 9 trailer breakdown up on the channel probably tomorrow or Thursday, the latest as well. And if anybody wants to see the episode 9 trailer, that is uploaded on my channel as well. If anybody didn't have a chance to see the episode 9 trailer and you want to check it out, it is on the channel, so you guys can check that out there. But again, huge thank you to each and every one of you for joining us this night. And until next time, stay safe out there, guys, in this crazy world. Keep those tinfoil hats on. Don't be afraid to dive into that rabbit hole, and we will see you on the next one.